Even men at the top of their game find themselves wanting more from life. Whether it's more meaning, unshakable confidence, a bigger impact, more money, deeper love, a hotter sex life, or a powerful legacy. Find out how good your life can be on this episode of Man Alive. Also, as I've supported men in their love and work lives for 15 years now, many men have asked me for the right words to say to be more attractive, desirable, and more of a leader. And I've found it's not so simple as giving scripts or lines. Because at the root of a connected and affectionate relationship and being more effective and inspiring at work is your ability to influence others. But most often, influence is not gained or lost with words. It's from what I call the invisible factors. So I created a quick guide for you called 3 Ways Men Lose Influence at Work and with Women, so you can understand how these invisible factors work and what has women and colleagues both more inspired to say yes. I think you're also going to be surprised to find out the moment when your influence actually begins. So grab the guide for free at ShaynaJamesCoaching.com/3ways. That's ShaynaJamesCoaching.com/3 and the word ways, WAYS. Or you can text ALIVE to 44144. That's the word ALIVE, ALIVE, to 44144. I hope you enjoy the guide and this episode. Hello and welcome to this episode of Man Alive. I'm your host, Shayna James, and I'm excited to be here today with George Stoimanov. George, welcome.
Thank you, Shayna. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we are going to talk about the importance and necessity of anger. And I think especially with men, this is an interesting topic because in some ways, I would say men's anger has been considered more acceptable than women's. And yet at the same time, I'm also realizing as we are, coming through the Me Too era and time where women's rights are becoming, I don't know, they've been around for a long time, but there's something else happening in the culture today where men, I think, are also there's an acceptance in some ways of anger, and then there's also a lot of anger that I think men hold inside and don't know what to do with. So maybe it's like, for some men, they're expressing their anger, and for other men who are trying to be nice and good and kind and, generous and caring for people, there is sometimes anger that gets stuffed inside. So I think this will be an interesting topic to cover today and really, really useful for a lot of men out there. So thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
So let me give you a quick bio and then we'll jump in. George is the founder and main editor of Men's Corner. He was born and bred in rural Bulgaria. It's a hard one, tongue twister, but has lived in Britain since 2009. George is a men's coach and public speaker who delivers talks on subjects related to masculinity and being a man, and runs a life coaching business designed to empower men and support them in stepping into confidence, presence, the realization of their full potential, and their character. And George has spoken all around the world, in South Africa, Zambia, native Bulgaria and UK. And excited to have you here today. So I think what I want to start with is your story, because as we talked a little bit, we were talking about how your dad, I can't remember exactly, but I remember your dad was like very, very stoic, right?
Well, I wish he was actually, because he did express one emotion very well, and that was anger.
And that was anger. Okay, so it was the other emotions that weren't there, but anger he actually expressed.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about what that was like for you and how that shaped you growing up.
Well, I never could get angry, and I wondered why. Often, I remember from very early age, I wanted to pacify other boys, especially boys who were stronger. I remember in the kindergarten, I remember being about 3 years old and having dreams about one of my kindergarten mates, shall we say, not schoolmates. He was a strong boy, in many ways like my dad. Yeah. And I remember pacifying him in my dreams, talking to him and wanting him to be good to me. Not because I liked him very much, but just because I knew that I couldn't resist him if I needed to. So that I always was aware of the lack of anger in myself, and therefore a lack of strength. I knew very early in life that strong men and strong boys had very little to do with the physical strength.
Yes.
It's to do with the ability to say no and to get angry at injustice.
Wow. I mean, this is like from 3 years old, you had this awareness somehow.
Yes.
Yeah. It's amazing.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Now to think of it. Yeah.
So as you were not able to express anger, but you were also aware of it, right? How did that go through your younger years, your teenage years, your 20s? What happened then?
Well, when I was younger, I didn't know that I wasn't able to express anger. Okay. Now I know it, but then I just wasn't able to express it. Uh-huh. So I just questioned it, and I hated myself. Basically, it just, if there's one way that it manifested itself very early in life, is self-hatred, self-loathing, trying to make yourself someone you're not, which you can't.
Yeah.
And I remember feeling fear, my whole body being paralyzed with fear in the face of angry people.
Wow.
Even if they're not really angry, even if they're sort of passionate and they were expressive, and I just froze. Even later.
Okay, so it didn't even necessarily have to be anger, even passion or some kind of intense expression. Your body reacted the same way.
Yeah, the trauma from having a father like my dad. I mean, bless my dad. I'm not sort of trying to slug him off, but that's the truth. We need to speak the truth.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and that's part of it, right? It's like, when we have family dynamics that we actually can't speak the truth about, that is another way that we stuff our strength and our clarity and our wisdom.
Yeah. That's exactly my story.
Yeah. So what was it that helped you then come out of your shell and actually recognize, oh, anger is something that I need to have access to?
Well,
I love the little laughter.
One factor. Sorry?
I love the little laughter there. Like, okay, but this is going to be good.
Number one factor is that somehow through the years, I didn't lose touch with my suffering. I knew how miserable I was. I knew that I wasn't really a man. And that's my belief, that my default is like me comparing myself to my father. And my father, as a result, he actually in many ways was a good man. He wasn't a bully. He didn't go out drinking. He stood up for what was good very often. And people respected him and feared him in many ways. But he never seemed to abuse that respect and fear. He didn't go out and become a gangster or something like that. He was a very hardworking man.
Wow.
So in many ways, I knew that I was not like him. I was operating out of this default, that poison, like toxic belief that I will never be like him.
Yeah.
So I tried to make myself later in life, and I started lifting weights, and then I became very big, physically big. But I knew that deep inside, I'm a coward. I'm not true. I'm not genuine. I can't relate to anyone because inside, I'm just weak. I'm just young. I'm just little.
Wow.
Literally, I always felt like a little boy. Uh-huh. And back then, I thought this was a curse. I thought, why don't you grow up? I remember being 15, and that's the breaking point, really. When after that point, when someone giving me a black eye, some bullies.
Yeah.
And I didn't have it in me to fight or to resist them, even with words.
Wow.
Almost like they confirmed that message that, you see, you're not good enough.
Wow.
And that very next day, I started lifting weights, and that's the next 5 years, you could just watch my transformation. Uh-huh. And I started working as a security guard, and I got involved in some levels of violence. I even got hit with a baseball bat in the head. I still got that scar. Everyone asked me where the scar from. It's a long story. But I knew that deep down, I was very little, and I didn't want to take responsibility. All I wanted from life, not even violence. I never became violent because I couldn't get angry.
Right.
I just wanted pleasure. I just wanted to numb my pain, basically.
Interesting. Okay, so you knew that you couldn't get angry, and then the next move was, well, maybe if I have some pleasure, I could feel better.
I always felt good when I was seen. I was noticed. I was not. I was acknowledged. I was saying, wow, he really is someone. Especially with girls, like, wow, he really is a man. He's got the body. He's got the looks. I've had, like my sense of humor was really, I used to hide behind.
Uh-huh.
And for me, that was good enough. That was like bliss. I didn't want to have a girlfriend or a wife. No. I just wanted that pleasure. But the cycle of strangers had to keep repeating itself. I was not comfortable with staying in a relationship with the same woman, because then you have to review yourself for who you are.
Right. She might find you out that place that you actually felt weak and small inside.
Yeah. That place can't relate to anyone, to a woman or a man, because you're a child inside. And I thought this was very wrong.
I'm just thinking about how common that is for men and for women both. But I think there's something in particular for men right around, I'm supposed to be big, I'm supposed to be strong. And if someone really got to know me they would know that I feel weak inside or that I feel small inside. And I'm curious, what was the breaking point for you? It sounds like something at some point shifted where you started to realize, oh no, this is not working.
Yeah, well, to go back to your first question, one of the most important things is that I remained present somehow to my suffering. So there's something, blessed are the poor in spirit. And I was wondering, what's that? Well, because if you stay present to your misery, you might eventually get to something that will help you. And if you shut down and said, no, I'm good now, get up and man up and go. And eventually things started working for you. And then part of you just is lost. But for me, what really, really made a huge difference, a very painful difference, was getting into a relationship, finding the woman, or rather just allowing to be found by her and not running away this time.
So you let her start to see you, and then it sounds like something started to crumble.
We felt together, we felt very different. So we moved together to the UK from Bulgaria, which I never thought I would do because I had a very comfortable life there. I was working for someone who helped me maintain that image. He would give me the car and a flat to live in. And just I was looking and feeling like $1 million. And suddenly, bang, that relationship comes into your life. It's like Goodwill Hunting, when he had a promise of a career and success and finally becoming someone. And then, bang, you have this relationship that his heart was there, even though it was very rocky. And I said, you know what? If I never take a risk, if I never just change, just step out of my comfort zone, one day I might regret it. So we moved to England and I thought, well, that's a sacrifice enough. She'll be happy with that. Yeah. But she's my age. And she saw something in me that even I didn't know I had. Something strong and something good, even beautiful. Wow. And she demanded that I become that I move away from the childishness. And that was very painful. And we both paid the price.
You did.
Yeah.
So, okay. So there's a lot in there and we don't have to go into all of it, but you said she demanded that you become something more, something, stronger, bigger. So what happened then?
Well, the first thing that started to happen is I started to get angry. Now, look at the irony of this.
Yes.
Now, all my life, I've beaten myself up for my inability to feel anger. Yep. I couldn't have the anger on the playground when I needed against some boys that were a bit more, not even bullies, a bit more boisterous. And later on, when I needed it to stand up against some injustice at work or when I was working at a nightclub, I didn't have that anger. I had to medicate myself with cocaine and alcohol just to muster up something to help me move through that situation. However, with her, I was getting angry all the time.
Wow.
And another irony, with all the other girlfriends, I never had any anger. I was so gracious. I was the real man. With her, whom I loved, suddenly I felt like this little boy who was not only little innocent, but actually little and almost murderous.
Wow. Right. I mean, this is the interesting part I think about anger too, where it's like, when we don't have room for our anger, I think that's when it expands to the point where it can become almost murderous, like you're saying, right? It's like if it's kept in this tiny little box, then it's volcanic. It's like it needs to, there's a pressure that it needs to erupt.
Yeah. Well, you have this little boy who spends a lifetime just hating himself, or rather you have this older guy who hates that little boy inside of him. And he's shutting down and he's just pushing him and beating him up. And then the only little window of peace and joy is just a few things like just addictions or just, let's say, watching television, just for the sake of the conversation. And then you have someone who comes in and takes away your television. Yeah. How are you going to feel towards that person?
Right. And that's someone who says, like, you're not enough as you are. I need you to be more, which in some ways there could be a loving way of like, I see more in you and I want you to step up and be more. Sometimes that happens. And sometimes it's more brutal, where a relationship with a woman where she can be demanding, but either way, you're then confronted with yourself.
In my way, in our way, it was actually very healthy, even though maybe a bit premature at times, but it drove me to this sense of despair, to wanting to kill myself and just end it all, but knowing that I had nowhere to go. Yeah. I really had nowhere to go. I knew there was more from me, more to that new life, even though it was full of challenges and I had to work on a building site, something I'd never done back in Bulgaria. I had a very comfortable life. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me, being challenged by the woman who's now become my wife recently. Well, not that recently, years ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I mean, I'm struck also by, right, you were pushed to the point of despair and actually wanted to kill yourself and not be alive. And yet then you said something interesting but there was nowhere to go. So, some men do take that out. And I'm curious, what had you be committed to stay?
Well, the glimpses of greatness that I had already seen, I had seen every now and again, I'd seen that she was actually right. I could be more. And every time when I tried to be that more, that nobler self, it actually had amazing impact.
Wow.
And it only happened literally maybe 5 times in my life when I had to speak the truth. And even though I was very shaky and people took me seriously, I never taken myself seriously. My parents never took me seriously. Nobody, as far as I was aware, would take me seriously. And yet, whenever I risked it, actually the effect was great. So I'd already seen, maybe there is something in me. Maybe there's more in me than what I come to believe.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And so now it sounds like, you actually support men in believing in themselves and taking themselves seriously. And I know you talk about confidence, presence, and character. So I'm curious, if as we're shifting from your really powerful and touching story into how you work with other men, what would you describe? How would you describe character?
Character is the system that we have inside of us that is based on all these ideas, not so much about the world, but about ourselves in terms of our values and our almost like knots, and all these knots that they make for a whole system tied together. And if any of these knots are tied in the wrong place or not well, that becomes our personality. And our inner integrity is shifted. So, but I start from confidence. I start from outside, because with us, men at least, has to start from the physical and move into the inner, the spiritual.
Say more, because I actually have a perspective of how it has to start from the inside and move to the outside. So tell me your perspective about how it has to start from the outside. I like this.
Well, it's very simple. Very often it starts with emotions, but sometimes you don't even feel the need to express emotions. So what I started doing with men before, it's like, for example, you have a client who just thinks that he just needs to be confident, more confident. And that's on the outside. You see, the first thing is confidence.
Yes.
So then we sort of evaluate, okay, well, what's holding your confidence back? I don't believe like some people are, I'm naturally just this and natural that. Well, how do you know? How many years have you explored your inner self? How do you know what's natural then?
So you're saying what you don't believe is when someone says, well, this is just who I am, or this is just the natural me, you're like, well, actually, let's explore this and let's check this out.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. So very often you say, wow, well, it seems to me that there's some issue there. Do me a favor, I would say very often, and just punch this, like a punching bag or a punching pad, something to do with physical expression of emotion that the person doesn't believe he has. And well, if you think, and I say, do it one more time. Before you know it, something will manifest now. So starts with the physical, and then we engage the emotions. Very often the emotions are just lying dormant because they've been suppressed for so many years. So we have to take the step in faith to use the body to engage the emotions, which then in time leads us to the spiritual, to the inner self, to the character.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. So what you're saying is you start in a way, the physical gives access to the emotional, which gives access to the spiritual. And I think I have seen that, right? When I'm working with men, it's not always easy to go inside, but I think the men who come to me are often ready to, they recognize that there's something inside first. But I imagine in their own lives, there is a sense externally of, I'm not feeling confident, or I'm not feeling like the man I want to feel. And there's kind of that sense on the outside of their character, not feeling who they, being who they want to be. So I think in some ways we're on the same tracks.
Absolutely. Yes. And it's not, there are many exceptions, but that's what I found. So you start with the confidence, because nobody will just come to you and say, well, I need help to adjust my character a little bit. There's something inside that's not, but that's the result. If you keep going, depends how deep you want to go with that journey. That's where we're ending up, in the inner self, in the integrity inside.
Yeah. And so you just use the word integrity, right? Can you describe a little bit about how you work with men and to discover what their integrity actually is?
Oh yeah, that's my favorite part, because there's a whole community of men and women out there that think that integrity, and they're trying to reach integrity by being moral.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not against morality. However, that's only the byproduct of true integrity.
Yeah.
Integrity, literally integral, like whole, all the parts of you together, they're whole. So when you're present to all those parts, if you tell a lie, one of these parts will have to split. So if you keep telling those lies, you'll be literally split inside. And that's all my life. I've been split. True self and real self, I didn't even know how far deep buried was my true self. So I had to, that integrity, oh my goodness, that's what a journey. So integrity is bringing up all those parts, that little boy, or parts of that little boy, or if you will, many different, almost like personalities, in terms of stuck in different sort of age, and putting them together and giving them expression. And very often with men is that suppressed anger that first comes to the surface, very often, most of the times.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I had a lesson in integrity, decades ago, where I said to someone, well, I want to be in integrity, and I said I would do this, so I'm going to do it, right? I'm going to keep my word. And I was working with a coach at that time, and he said, well, there's a deeper issue here, right? Because if you're making promises or you're committing to things that actually aren't aligned with your truth or what you believe in or what is good for you, then whether or not you keep your word, right? There's a deeper integrity here.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm sensing that place too, where, you're helping men go deeper to really discover, okay, what is true for me? And like you're saying, there are often times where men haven't touched that true self or that deeper self because of living based in everyone else's shoulds and expectations and families and, football coaches and teachers and all these. It can be so easy for that true self to get shoved deeper and deeper inside.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which makes sense to me then that anger and rage would come up around that.
Yes, of course it would, because it's not a bad emotion. Anger is actually a great emotion, because it's just, look at the history of mankind. Now, the shadow side of man's anger, everyone knows about it, so there's no need of even mentioning that. However, maybe we should bring up the good side.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for man's anger, we'll probably still be ruled by Nazism or something like that. Especially like the soil that I'm standing on right now, Great Britain. It's been protected and kept safe, and probably the whole Western world or the whole world, because of the righteous anger of men or women as well. I'm not excluding women, but we're talking about men right now. And if they were not angered at that injustice, then they would have not done anything to stop it.
Right. It's such a tricky thing, because it's like, right, anger, I think, is what creates the injustice in the first place, but then anger is also what has the power to stop it sometimes.
Yeah. Well, it has to be clean anger. It has to be that sword that's been clean and put in the sheath, prepared only for a purpose, only for a mission that is good.
Right,
so
it is.
We're arming men. We give it the power to use that sword. But with the integrity of the heart, then it's up to them how to use it. And if you keep that sword in the dark and all twisted and behind all that emotions, is going to be used in a very bad way. First against themselves, second against their families, because they won't be able to tap into their true selves.
Yeah.
Because you hiding your anger, you end up hiding a whole lot behind the anger of your true self.
Yeah. Yeah. This is such a powerful conversation. I'm almost like, wow, we've only been talking for 20 minutes and I feel like we've gone, to the depths of this. And I love what you just said about how, first anger gets turned in toward self.
Yes.
Right? And then outward. Or, sometimes for men, it can seem as though it's not turned toward self. It's just going outward. And sometimes it's even seen in the terms of, irritability or frustration. Like, I'm not really angry. I'm just frustrated.
Yes.
And
yet, so many of us like that.
Right. And yet it's like a double-edged knife where it's actually going inward and outward at the same time.
Yeah. And there's a movement right now to almost like disarm men from from, well, there's no anger. Anger is bad.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the fact that you're putting this dynamite cake under the bed of that man doesn't make it any safer.
Yes.
It has to be in the hands of someone who knows what they're doing. In the hands of, that's why I call my work life training firm. I train men to handle their own dangerous personality, because we're all dangerous. We all have capacity. But if you deny that, and I know that you know about the shadow work, the more you deny and repress something, the more power that thing has got. Even if it doesn't manifest in violence, it's violence against your own soul. And what happens for men with depression, because I suffered with depression for a long time. So I help people who suffer with depression very often, at least in cases that I've seen. And in my case, is suppressed anger from good people, nice people. They don't want to be angry. Of course you don't. And then you've been conditioned as a young boy. There was no outlet for that. So you work all night long. I used to wake up tired. I've not done anything for 8 hours, just slept. And you wake up tired because you work. Your soul is resting, suppressing parts of it. Yeah. That bubbling emotion. And then you wake up, you already done so much work. So if you let that flow freely, if it's empty from the rubbish, of course, because there's a lot of it, that's why it needs to take a journey, then you'll be fully alive. And I've become a morning person now in the last 5 years. Yeah. Before I always thought, well, that's not me. I just like to sleep 10 hours. But not really.
Now I used you're to actually like energized. And, right. Yeah. So how do you help men clear the rubbish from the anger?
First, we need to get in touch with it. Mm-hmm. We need to get in touch with that. And I'm here for you. I'm not here even as a coach or a trainer. I'm here as your brother. I'm here as someone who can, even physically sometimes, hold you through this. It's okay. I'm not afraid, and you shouldn't be afraid. There's something that you need to face that you're not facing, and I'm here for you.
So beautiful. I can feel the power of that brotherhood of like, okay, I'm here with you and I'm not afraid. And, maybe you shouldn't be afraid, but you might still be. And, absolutely. Okay, as you are, right? Yeah, I can be here with you.
Yes.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. I mean, there's a kind of love that I think, one of the things I feel like I get to do is love men for a living, which is such an honor. And, there's definitely sometimes a challenge to that love, but there's also this kind of softness and acceptance and in a kind of feminine way. And I'm feeling the masculine love that you bring, right? There's also an acceptance and okay, I'm going to be with you even as you're afraid. And there's that kind of holding, or okay, you can come up against me and I will be here, brother, right? Like,
yes.
I'm here with you. I've got you. Yeah, I can feel your strength in that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, all right, if we were going to give men a practice around their anger and around finding, a deeper integrity, what's a practice you would give men to start with?
Well, the toughest place to start with is the emotions, because many men, especially nowadays, we're open to the spiritual, we're open to talk about the inner self and how we can improve and what pathways. However, when it comes to that fire of emotions, so one quick example, me and my wife, suddenly anger will come in me. That was in the past, of course. In the last few years, things have shifted massively. That's why I'm able to offer to others. But before, it was like, I feel such anger and it's totally out of proportion. And this is why having a woman who is strong, really strong, is really good, because she was not afraid to look at me in the eyes and say, what you're feeling right now, it's nothing to do with me. It's to do with your mom. You actually hate your mom. So go in your bedroom and express that hatred. And I'm like, no, I don't hate anyone. Leave me alone. I'm doing some writing. Leave me alone. I'll be fine. No. You need this out of your system because it will come again. Go and express it. Face it. Say to your mom what you feel about her. And the beauty of that thing is that I didn't even need to get in touch with my mom. She wouldn't know what I'm talking about.
Right. It's not the actual mom. It's more the internalized mom.
Absolutely. I've got in touch with this little place inside me. Let's say when I'm 5 or 10 or 12, it doesn't matter. It's come up so many times. And I go there and I just start in faith, because I don't feel it. I feel anger towards my wife, but I trust her. I believe her. So in faith, I just start to, let's say, hit the pillow and say, I hate you. I hate you. I hate you. And suddenly, the more I hit the pillow, the more I repeat that mantra, finally something in me is connecting, and then the real hatred comes up. And the beauty of it is, once I've destroyed that image of the mother whose shadow side has hurt me so much, I can actually forgive her and embrace her real side.
Yeah.
So I would say to men, you don't run from the emotions.
Yeah.
They will lead you somewhere.
I've done exercises with men where I've actually stood in for the mother, or, you know, the ex-wife or the ex-girlfriend or the sister or whoever from the past, and just, you know, kind of let that anger go through me and encourage, right? Like, okay, and what else, and what else, and what else, and right, it's so powerful to let that out. And I love, I'm just falling in love with your wife, as, you know, she had the strength to be able to say to you, this is not about me. And then your own strength to not fall into, you know, a shame spiral of like, okay, well, now I'm bad or she's bad. And to actually really, you know, take her guidance. It's really amazing.
Well, we have been through a lot of shame. So it's not a pure journey. It's not clean. It's not black and white, as you might imagine. So I'm just giving sort of the outcome of it. Yeah, you should be interviewing her, really.
Yeah, that would be a good next conversation. All right. So the practice is to start to allow their emotions, and anything you want to guide them to do. Like, would you suggest that a man go and, you know, punch some pillows or do something like that? Or is there another way to start that you encourage to feel those emotions?
Well, I work with men who are not prone to violence generally. I work with men, most of my clients are sort of middle-aged and they're from presentable backgrounds. So with them, that works because that warrior side of them has not been tapped into.
Right.
So if you do boxing or if you're very athletic, punching probably not going to do it for you because you're used to that.
Yep.
So for you, it might be the grief that comes up and you're suppressing it.
Yeah. Right. So it's like it's kind of checking in to see like what emotions am I not feeling or have I not been able to feel?
And if there's any sort of cue and tip to help you, I think the first thing is to let go of our addictions, because addictions for me and for everyone I've worked with, they're the first step towards the emotion that we sort of block ourselves because we don't want to feel the pain.
Yeah.
So with me, back a long time ago, used to be sex and then pornography. And then when I eliminated this, then it was sweet, chocolate, then watching movies, reading books, even good books, it doesn't matter. Anything to keep my mind busy. So there's no way to feel that if you're still masking it, if you're still covering it over with external things. So I had to drop the book or drop the chocolate bar or the film, whatever, and just ask myself, okay, why do I feel so miserable? Yeah. What is it? And then my wife helped me so much. But I also had to see a counselor. I also had to start attending men's group. And I've been to men's retreat of all different kinds, spiritual, physical challenges. I had to go and do things that I couldn't do as a boy that I never thought I could. You know, well, I'm not very athletic, so I can't climb a mountain or I can't swim. I learned to swim only 4 years ago. So every initiation into new things that exposed me. So one advice for men, be willing to be exposed. That little boy inside of you must be exposed and vulnerable. Of course, in the presence of those who want to abuse him further and say, see, you're not good enough.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for having this conversation. And thank you for being on your own, you know, really powerful journey where you've been willing to go deep inside yourself and, you know, find that little boy and kind of rescue him and love him and help him grow up and, you know, integrate into you.
Thank you, Shayna. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm so glad you joined us for today's episode of Man Alive. I hope it gives you a sense of what's possible and how good your life can be. If you like what you heard, I'd be so grateful for you to subscribe to Man Alive and write a quick review that helps men like you find us. And again, head over to shaynajamescoaching.com/manalive to get outtakes, videos, and raw footage I only share there. These are some of the most interesting parts of these expert conversations. You can also grab your copy of The Unknown Power to accelerate your career and solidify your confidence with women, because the two are related, and I know you don't have to settle for one or the other. Join us each week for a new episode of Man Alive.